Namaskar and good afternoon to all attending this 24th national webinar organized by NATMO from Department of Science and Technology, Government of India. I would like to request all the participants that you please mute your system. This is very important. Today, we will know how climate plays an important role in the livelihood of migrants of Sagar Island. A young scientist, Srimati APARNA BERA CHOWDHURY, will tell us the inference drawn by her while studying the migrants of Sagar Islands. Before we go to the guest, I would request our director, NATMO, Dr. Tapati Banerjee, to deliver her welcome address.
Thank you, Madhurima. First of all, I welcome to all the staff members of NATMO who are present over here in this virtual platform. I also welcome the members outside of NATMO who are present in this platform and who love to listen the recent study. And I specially welcome our today's guest speaker, Mr. APARNA BERA CHOWDHURY. Actually, she was working in the Sagar Island. I had a very long discussion with her how she's experiencing and how she is working over there. And she's very sincere and working very hard for this Sagar Island, especially on the migrants and that adverse situation, how the people are adjusting in that adverse situation. And recently she has published one international paper on international journal. And I'm very happy to announce in this regard that as we are observing 75 years of Indian independence, and we have arranged for 75 webinars during this period. And in this webinar series, we have divided this series into different groups. Like that, one is a special lecture for specially abled citizens of India, general geographical themes, and also for the researchers to showcase their findings, their work, their experience during the work. And under this series, APARNA is the first to deliver today. I heartily welcome her for her deliberations. I think there will be good discussion, interaction at the end of the session. So I request Madhurima to invite APARNA to deliver her lecture.
Thank you so much, madam, for your warm welcome address. And this is the time to hear from our guest speaker, Srimati APARNA BERA CHOWDHURY, who is a school teacher and a research scholar at Suresh Gyan Vihar University, Jaipur. She has a teaching experience of more than 10 years, whereas she wrote papers in different national and international journals, took part in a good number of conferences, and published books as author and editor. Presently, she is working and teaching geography at Rishi Rajnarayan Girls High School, West Bengal. Today, we will hear about climate variability and livelihood vulnerability of induced migrants of Sagar Island, India. APARNA, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. All the NATMO officials, academicians, research scholars, and everyone who have joined. I am APARNA BERA CHOWDHURY. Today, I'll be presenting my topic, but before that, I would like to express my gratitude to the NATMO and especially the director, madam, for giving me this opportunity to present in the 24th National Series webinar on the celebration of 75th year of independence. I'll be present my topic through PPT. So everyone please allow me few moments to start the presentation.
Yes, it is visible. Yes, please Continue.
So today my topic is climate vulnerability and livelihood vulnerability of induced migrants of Sagar Island. And I'll be starting my topic with a quote from eminent author Amitav Ghosh, the writer of The Hungry Tides, as we all know. It says, but in the era of global warming, nothing is really far away. And as we all know, the effect of climate change are causing large-scale human displacement all over the world. With a rise in both rapid and slow onset climate phenomena, people have been more and more forced to leave their habitat and migrate elsewhere. According to an estimation of internal displacement monitoring, over 19.3 million people were displaced worldwide till 2014, and this figure could be a 1 billion by 2050. And actually, India topped for displaced world for the highest disaster displacement in 2019. We know that in fifth assessment report, IPCC warned us as our warming planet poses an existential threat to low-lying coastal areas, especially delta. These areas will face high risk from rising sea levels due to their greater exposure, higher sensitivity, and lower adaptive capacity. With increasing temperature, changing rainfall pattern, rising sea levels, severe coastal erosion, and extreme storm surges, low-lying fragile islands of Sundarban are already paying the climate cost of climate change, as the people are becoming the region's first climate refugee. And we know the other deltas all over the world are also sinking from rising seas. It will be better if we call it the apparent rising of sea level. Our river Hooghly of Bengal Delta has almost become an estuary of vanishing islands, as 4 neighboring islands have been submerged in last 25 years, and the largest island, that is my study area, Sagar, is also slowly sinking, causing loss of land, property, and livelihood, and also causing emigration of people searching for jobs in urban pockets. My discussion in the
Excuse me. Excuse me, Aparna. You are not audible. You are not audible now, Aparna. Excuse me, Aparna. You are not audible. Can you hear me? কিছু আওয়াজ পাওয়া যাচ্ছে না। এখন আর বেশ কিছুক্ষণ আর লাগবে না, ওটা পড়বে।
So we are now seeing this kind of headlines in our mainstream newsletters as battered by climate change, shrinking island in the Sundarban struggles to stay afloat. The shrinking island of the world's largest mangrove have triggered a refugee crisis. This is the life on a sinking island, and so on. So, first of all, I should be clarified what is climate refugee or who are the climate-induced migrants. According to the IPCC definition, they are the subset of environmental migrants who were forced to flee due to sudden or gradual alteration in their natural environment related to at least one or three of the impacts, whether it is sea level rise or extreme weather events or drought or water scarcity. Over the past 2 decades, residents of this shrinking island have seen their homes engulfed farmland salinized, and livelihood depleted by the rising seas. In recent years, increased pace of erosion has made the refugee crisis of the region reach a tipping point, actually, that is demanding more effective governance and planning propositions. Moving on to the next slide. Here, I should be more clear about few terms that we'll be using throughout the presentation, as these words are umbrella words used usually used in different perception. So exposure is the extent to which system is in contact with a change. Sensitivity is the degree to which the community is affected, and adaptive capacity is the system's ability to withstand or recover from a change in the climate. And therefore, what is livelihood? We can perceive this term as the accumulated uh, acculturation of human capital, natural capital, financial capital, physical capital, and social capital. And I will explain all of this in the next slides. Vulnerability analysis actually evaluate the interlinkages of a community with the biological and socioeconomic surroundings. And according to IPCC definition, working definition of risk, it is the function of hazard, vulnerability, and exposure. Climate variability and extreme events can directly and indirectly impact on the environment and socioeconomic sectors like water, agriculture, food security, livelihood, human health, and biodiversity. In addition, population pressure, land use change, and agricultural productivity can magnify risk and exposure too. Moving on to the next slide. This is my study area. Sagar Island appears like a water droplet on the map, is the largest island of Sundarban archipelago of 102 islands, of which 48 is inhabited now. This low-lying island has been global climate change hotspot, where the fragility of the ecosystem and overdependence of people on climate-sensitive subsistence, along with underdevelopment, have made the population vulnerable. Majority of the population make out precarious livelihood on this flood and cyclone prone land by farming, fishing, and collecting forest resources. Marginal workers depend on seasonal tourism during the annual fair of Gangasagar, and for the rest of the year they become daily laborers. And after 2090 ILA, most of the agricultural land became barren and converted into aquacultural ponds due to the increased salinity. Thin
Ma'am, can you hear my ma'am? Hello.
Yes, please wait for a while. I think the speaker is suffering from some technical issues. We have to wait for a while.
Okay, ma'am.
So this is my study area. That is the Sagar Island. The low-lying island has been global climate change hotspot for the fragility of the ecosystem and over-dependence of people on climate-sensitive subsidence, along with the underdevelopment. People are made precarious living out of on this flood-dominated Assuran Island by the forest collection and prawn seed collection. Then moving on to the next slide. Here, by a schematic sketch, I have accumulated some of the factors causing these multiple climate-induced migration. One of them are environmental variability, which we have already explained, hydrological parameters, morphological regimes, and anthropogenic activities. As part of a prominent microtidal and flood-dominated estuary, coastal zones of this island are made of mud flats, creeks, sandy beaches, with an average elevation of 4 meters. And then if we consider the daily tidal range, it is 3.5 to 5.5 meter here. So a large portion of the island becomes saline in daily tides and storm surges. And if we consider the other factor that the land reclamation started in 1811 in the British period, long before the accretion erosion process could reach to a stable equilibrium in this newly formed active delta. And here arise the blocking of siltation by the ring walls they have built around the island. And then construction of Farakka barrage reduced the supply of freshwater influx, and subsequent dying out of lower order tributaries had reduced sediment supply that changed the river dynamics to surplus erosion over accretion. In a nutshell, the combined effects of subsidence induced sea level rise, that is the apparent rise, and sediment deficit, clearance of mangroves, infrastructural development, clay mining, and dipletic tourism are responsible for this erosion. Now moving to the next slide. Am I audible now, ma'am?
Yes, you are audible. It's all
Okay.
right. Please carry on.
This is my objective of this study. I will not read this as already I have lost most of the time. So to assess the impact of climate change, analyze the vulnerability, assessing and mapping the multi-hazard prone zones, and applying and formulating statistical economic models. Then moving on to the next slide. It is a complex flow chart. I'll be not discussing in details. This is the methodology. Now moving on to this slide, let's investigate the situation or causal factors one by one, starting with the climate variation and extreme weather situation. The average temperature and precipitation here has increased 0.036 centigrade and 3.72 millimeter in these first two graphs. We are seeing this, and most interesting observation is that the most increasing tendency took place between 1 to 17. And one of the interesting thing is this, the positive correlation between temperature and potential evapotranspiration. That actually implies that with increasing temperature, there is a significant amount of loss of water from the surface. And going to the sea level rise, this is the most critical consequence as it harms the coastal ecosystem and livelihoods with frequent flooding during storms and high tidal surges. Due to the partial availability of data, I have considered the rate of nearest station, that is Diamond Harbour, where 5.74 millimeter per year rate of rising has been observed from 1948 to 2015. That is 3 times higher than the global average.
You.
Ma'am, my slides is visible?
Yes, slides are visible now.
Okay,
Slides are visible.
I'll try to
Yeah,
finish it.
yeah, yeah.
These maps are showing the changes in area of Sagar and Ghoramara Island. And here we can see the shoreline of 1999 to 2019 and the consecutive changes in area. And here is the measurement of the percent change, and this is showing minus 11.01% decrease in the area from 1999 to 2019. And then moving on to this map, land use and land cover change. This change analysis also shown that there is a decrease in vegetation and increase in water body and built up area. Here I have attached an interview slide of my visiting the refugee colony Lokhi Bajar, Gangasagar GP there. So the video is audible.
No, the video is not audible. You please skip your video. Skip, please, skip. You please go to the next slide.
Okay, I'm moving on to the next slide.
Yeah.
We got this information. This table is showing the resettlement of climate-induced migrants, and it is the case study of Gangasagar GP. And on this basis, here the table is showing the person emigrated from the allotment, the number of allotted families, and the area allotted per family in the areas. Actually, from 1980s, the local government, local block development authority, actually is resettling the climate refugees in the Gangasagar. There were few refugee colony, and they are resettling them. And on this basis, I have hello.
Hello. Please continue,
I am
please. Hello.
hello. So they are resettling them on the Rayati land, allotting 2 to 1.6 acres per family. And I have visualized this map, migration map, from where they are out migrating and where they are immigrating in the Gangashagar resettlement colony. Some of are coming from Oceania Island, from the submerged Lohachara Island. They had came long before, and from Goramara Island, and some of the lost bits of neighboring islands, and from the eroded portion of the island of the Sagar Island itself. Then I have made the shoreline change and LULC map of the Gangashagar GP. And here also we're finding the overall decrease in agricultural land, vegetation, and increase in settlement. Then moving on to the next slide. It is the Lvi analysis. It is the comparative assessment of livelihood vulnerability of climate-induced migrants and regular settlers of Sagar through Lvi, which was firstly used by Han in 2019, and then IPCC had developed a different version of this same analysis. It is a balanced weighted approach that carries multiple indicators to assess the exposure and cumulative impact of the effective community, and on a scale of 0 to 1. And applying these formulas, the calculation was done. I have shown here only the micro view of the total contributing factors, and every contributing factors, these 8 factors have also individual contributing factors of them. And these diagrams are called the vulnerability triangle diagrams, that is showing their vulnerability, their comparative vulnerability. This is for the Bigwa Khali Mauja, and this is for the Gangashagar Mauja, and this is the vulnerability spider diagram. This also is showing the contributing factor specific vulnerability of the comparative analysis of these two Maujas. And here, if we compare the LVI and LVI IPCC score, we find that in every case, the vulnerability of resettlers, that is refugee settlers, are way more than the regular settlers. In this analysis, exposure of the community is measured by the perception of natural disaster and climatic variation. Sensitivity is assessed by health, food, water, social safety indicators. And adaptive capacity is quantified by socio-demographic profile, livelihood strategy, and social safety indicators. Then moving on to the next. Am I audible still now?
Yes, you are audible. It's all right.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Now, on the basis of field survey and official data, this map are formed. This is showing different ongoing biophysical process. The Maujas colored in red are actually showing the actually are the erosion prone Mauja, and the blood red color are having the in-migration also. This is the area, this is erosion-prone mojas are showing actually out-migration. Here I am making a mistake. And the area, the mojas colored in yellow, these are the receiving areas, are the areas receiving in-migration. And the green areas are not showing any change as such. And this is also based on that primary survey. The change in original livelihood, here we could say that more than almost 40 to 50% population has changed changed their livelihood, agriculture to daily wage laborer, and the gray area showing the original livelihood to opportunity livelihood, and the brown color is showing the percentage of students who have now become child labor. Almost 70% of the migrants have lost their original livelihoods, and around 80% of them has at least one male member working outside. Going to the next slide, this is another statistical analysis of climate variability and economic determinants, linkage through GLM code. This study actually attempts to understand empirical linkages of these marginal peoples' ever-increasing vulnerability to changing climate, how the rising sea levels and climate variabilities impacts the productivity, livelihood, and migration pattern. 4 separate models were used to inquire the location-specific significance of the association between the climate-induced socioeconomic vulnerabilities, that is, land loss, productivity change, loss of livelihood, and migration. Of the 4 models, I have included here only the 2. The regression plotting of 41 inhabited mojas of Sagar Island shows the existing association between the loss of livelihood and change in agricultural productivity. Here we could say the mojas like Dhoblat, Beguakhali, Mohishmari, Shibpur, these are the outliers here. The overall observed association between key variables reflect that heavy migration is not sustainable at all for a longer period of time, as the aggressive sea is eroding faster than once perceived. Severe riverbank erosion in the northern tip and tidal erosion in the southern part, villages like this, which I have said earlier, around 10,000 families have been forced to retreat from the advancing seas. Now moving on to the next slide. This is the computation of vulnerability and risk analysis on the basis of which the next map is created, the next diagram rather. Ma'am, I'm audible still now?
Yes, you are audible. Please continue.
This diagram is showing Moja-wise hotspot of climate change impacts in terms of vulnerability and risk by methodological frameworks of IPCC. This multi-dimensional relative ranking of 41 Mojas actually indicate the majority of the vulnerable community is surviving in the marginal areas along the coastline. Shibpur, Dhublat, Beguakhali, Mohishmari, and Bonkimnagar, Sumotinagar. These red lines are showing the risk and blue lines are the vulnerability. So higher it goes, the higher values of vulnerability and higher values of risk it's showing. This schematic diagram can be very effective for target adaptation and mitigation intervention. in these geographically homogeneous villages, and I have correlated the specific portion of the satellite imagery with this highest coastline erosion portion of the villages. And if we intricately observe this, we can even perceive there's the highly aggravated coastal erosion is occurring in these villages. Moving on to next. This is the vulnerability and risk mapping showing that same Moujas, Dhoblat, Shibpur, Beguakhali are the Moujas that are facing maximum potential and risk of getting adversely affected by climate change. These areas need immediate mitigation intervention from the local government and planning authority. Next is the management part. What should be done? I have named this, actually I am formulated and named this model. This is sustainable resource management model. This conceptual model of livelihood provisioning and livelihood protection through sustainable resource development can assess the level of livelihood security of the threatened communities. And this actually can contrast it the potential migration tendencies through land use management and in situ disaster risk reduction. I can mention here few of the measures that immediate mitigation of climate stress can be done through site-specific adaptation strategy and long-term sustainable management. Alternative and sustainable livelihood options through microfinance, seasonal employment, low-cost housing scheme, vocational training, and strategic management plans for resettled migrants can reduce economic poverty and the vulnerability of rural areas. As well as to build long-term resilience, agriculture, fishing, manufacturing, transport, health, and education sectors. Funds in the climate action plan and disaster management are required. But if the state and national level planning agencies or planning authorities can scale up the adaptation funding from ongoing flagship scheme of state and national level, few of the examples are NG Narega, NNDP, RKVP. So these are the ongoing plans which already have funds, and this is the need of the hour to utilize these funds. Climate resilience production techniques backed by the stable restoration of embankments and protective mangrove walls would reduce the climate exposure of this marginal population. And on emergency basis, emergency responses like effective weather forecasting and its implementation, strategic retreat, and construction of sufficient cyclone and flood center would be a savior for these sinking and shrinking marginalized rural villages. However, all these adaptive measures have their own limits, and once reached, impacted communities may ultimately have to retreat or evacuate and resettle elsewhere. Sagar Island is also awaiting this inevitable future consequences unless compensated by the immediate policy interventions. These are the summary of the so far that this island is arguably an object lesson on how people are coping with a rising sea, and people of these constantly shrinking land masses are not only threatened by the climate risk, these areas are also facing the unmanageable demographics, large-scale poverty, marginalized livelihoods, and limited economic development. Though migration has already been established as household adaptation in coping with climate challenges, but this could only lead to the perpetuating vulnerability in different places. The dynamic and complex equation of constantly changing natural system and their functional relationship with society is crucial for the management strategies here.
Excuse me, Aparna, are you
Hello.
there?
Ma'am, am I audible still?
Yeah, continue.
Yeah, so I have presented the extraction of my two recently presented papers, these two papers, and these are the database, questionnaires, references. At the conclusion, hello,
Hello, ma'am. Hello. Ma'am.
at the conclusion,
Can I speak? At the conclusion.
I would say that these marginalized people are actually paying off our climate cost, suffering from our deeds. At the same time, protecting us, standing at the frontier and absorbing the first impacts. Can't we be benevolent enough to return them the same? Thank you for giving me attention for this long time. And thank you for the inconvenience caused by the slow network. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Srimati Bera. You have studied migrants so keenly, though there were some interruptions due to technical issues. You have drawn a clear picture of Sagar Island before us. Please, participants, please put on your video, and the interactive session will be initiated by our director, NATMO, Dr. Tapas Banerjee. Director, madam, please.
Thank you, Aparna. In spite of your some technical glitches, you have presented very nicely, and that excellent work you have done by, I think you have done by heart. So excellent way you have worked with the villagers and that statistical analysis with the data collection. So nicely you have done, and that excellent publication at the international journals. I know the people who are um, associated with this type of publication, they know how much stress they have to take and how much pain they have to take while publishing this type of publication. So excellent way you have presented and you have done your work methodologically. You have done so nicely. I'm really thankful to you for your presentation. Again, we will listen from you again, and I hope there will be some more interaction from different participants. So I allow them to interact with Aparna if they have any queries to ask
Yes,
from Aparna. With this, I thank you again to all.
sure, ma'am.
Thank you, madam. Aparna, I think you should stop your sharing. You please stop sharing your content. Yes, but the screen is on.
Yes, I'm stop sharing now.
Yeah. Okay. Participants are requested to feel free to ask Srimati Roy Choudhury. She will be glad to answer you. All the participants are requested to clear your doubts. Anybody else is there?
If no one is there to ask you, so I have some simple query. How many samples you have taken for as a questionnaire, in your questionnaire? How many samples you have collected?
Sir, ma'am, I have analyzed I have given showing here the two statistical analysis, and for one is done in a single Gram Panchayat, that is Gangasagar GP area, and one is done for the 41 inhabited moujas, the whole covering the whole island. And for the Gram Panchayat, I have covered 15% of the household, which is sufficient in case of highly homogeneous population, and I have collected around 3.5% of the total population in case of the whole island survey. That is, I have showing that in the linkages, in the economic linkages of climate variability, that analysis.
Have you seen any protective measures like plantation of mangrove and the other things, other plantations, which can help for reduction of this island area, land area?
Actually, ma'am, state government has always come up with only ad hoc resettlement plans, policies, or ad hoc after disaster management. So there is no inclusive management plan as such. And recently, we are hearing that about 5 crore mangrove plantation will be there, will be in the way. But actually, there is a debate that local people always want stone embankment or a concrete environment, as they feel that this will only protect them from the rising sea. But actually, years after years, from by doing this in another way, it is also restricting the natural siltation process. So the scientists, most of the environmentalists would suggest to retreat and then give it to the mangrove to rebuild. It will take 5 to 10 years to be remake the protected silt again, and till that we should retreat and evacuate that land, and then after the guard wall of mangrove is being there, and then we could resettle it. But there is a both the pros and cons of these two models, that is mangrove model and with concrete embankment. Both have advantage and both have potential to failure. And recently we are also hearing with Digha action plan, there will be action plan for Sundarban also. This will include my island, Sagar Island. So let's see what could be happening. Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
thank you.
Anybody else is there? I think Iman wanted to say something. Iman Nayak. Then
actually, ma'am, I want to add to your question. I have when I have went there, I met higher officials of irrigation department there, and then he actually explained me the real problem that is going on there. The 2019 Allahabad, after 2019, lots of money was sanctioned for the Allahabad, but that money, 50% of that money is not has not yet been capitalized. But the existing money, the main problem is sea level, as encroaching in sea level, as the area they sanctioned for the embankment, till the money get actualized, that in that time that area get de-elevated by the aggressive erosion. So another lot of land reclamation, land acquisition, they have to go through. And in this way,
And some of the experts, some of that organizations and experts, they are working in that coastal zone management and delta management part. Some are they? Do you find anyone is working over there with the stakeholders, or any suggestions from their side to recover or to protect that island?
Actually, ma'am, there are a lot of NGOs working there, a lot of private and government partnership institutions also there. They are working, but everybody is working for, if we can say, for short-term measures. But in long terms, I have also interviewed with some expert officials. They also have invariably said that actually there is no hope in coming 5 to 10 years, after 10 years, after 1.5 decade, uh, the population have to live elsewhere, have to abandon the island. There is no actually permanent solution of this, because before it could get any stability, the reclamation started and everything was going on from there. No.
During your visit, have you seen any guard wall or this plantation of mangrove has been done in any part of
Yes, ma'am. I'm
Sagar?
seeing the Beguakhali there, Beguakhali area. There is in one side Ailabad is constructing, and in one side the NGOs are afforesting with the mangrove seeds.
And now some of that in during discussion with some of the experts, even that some political leaders who are working for Sagar Island and Sundarban Island, they are also in that opinion that while after plantation, that local stakeholders they used to take it out because they are
Yes,
facing some problem during that fishing and other things. Is that
yes,
happening the
ma'am.
same in that Sagar Island also?
Yes, ma'am. And black marketing of mangrove sheets and mangrove woods, always it's been there. For so the notion of building afforesting mangrove walls is not been working till date.
Actually, if the stakeholders they are not aware and they don't if they don't use their means ability to hold the land, hold the conserve the land, that awareness program is mostly required, because
Yes, ma'am.
anyone can do, government can do so many things, but I hope that the stakeholders, those who are staying over there, they are the only person who can really can participate in this conservation program. Until and unless they do their own, there is nobody to help them. Because in case of Andaman, after that that tsunami in Andaman, this Andaman people, all the stakeholders over there, they are now so cautious to protect that island. So now it is almost it is regaining the land. So same thing has to happen here in Sagar Island also. Otherwise, it is of no hope to survive. So this way it will go on. So
Yes,
thank
ma'am.
you. You have excellent work done.
Thank you, ma'am. And I'm so sorry for the inconvenience. Today show disappointing money connection was.
Thank you all. Now I would like to thank all the participants, Director NATMO, Dr. Tapati Banerjee, all the officers and staff members of NATMO and DST, and surely today's guest speaker, Srimati APARNA BERA Roy Chowdhury. This webinar will now come to an end with our national anthem.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मागे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे